Let's talk about speaking albums. What is a speaking album? In my opinion, I don't even know if I want to say in my opinion. Well, so how do I want to phrase this? What is a speaking album? I guess it is my opinion because I don't think they've necessarily existed in the way I want to exist them. So this is my opinion, but eventually, hopefully, it's a fact. So it's not my opinion. That's where we're trying to go. Speaking albums to me are just like music albums, except the songs on a music album are not songs on a speaking album. They're talks. So imagine Justin Bieber coming out tomorrow with a speaking album in which Peaches is not a song. That's a hit song right now if you're keeping up with pop culture. It is a commentary. It is a 4-minute dialogue or monologue of Justin Bieber talking about how he gets his weed from California and his peaches from Georgia. Right now, obviously, putting that in a song has a lot of benefits. What are the benefits? A, people can relate to it because music is intrinsically, universalizable to some extent. Like everyone in the world can listen to a song and feel a certain type of way, even if they don't know what the lyrics mean, even if they don't know the certain language. Like you can relate to music. Music is universal. B, if music is universal, that means there's essentially an infinite number of people who can relate to that music. But that also means the music has replay value. So like you can play a song once and you can play it again years from now, right? That music can be played forever. That music is evergreen. It can stand the test of time, especially if it's good music. So you look at someone like Michael Jackson, I think his music stands the test of time because his music is so unbelievably popular, and popular is not even a word that does justice to it. I mean, I'm going to do a whole episode one day on Michael Jackson. His life and his music has influenced me to a different degree, but his music stands the test of time. How is that music delivered? It's really important to understand what a speaking album is. In most cases, a music or a song is delivered as a single off of a music album. What is an album? An album is a creative, cohesive body of work. At its very core, an album is like a book. And instead of the chapters being things that you read for 20, 30 pages each, they're 2 to 5 minute songs that are the chapters of the album that someone listens to. It is an audio experience to understand ideas, just like a book is a textual experience to understand ideas. So an album is usually a creative and cohesive body of work because when someone creates an album, they're creating what they always want to be, that isn't always what it is executed to be, but they're creating what they want to be, something that stands the test of time. Same thing when you're writing a book. I mean, hopefully most authors, when they write a book, they want that book to be read thousands from years from now, whether it's a fictional book, non-fictional, whatever it may be. So they want the book to be portrayed and delivered in a way via the information that actually gets people to care about the book, right? That actually gets people to want to continuously read it, that provides so much value to them that more and more people ultimately consume content within that medium. Same thing with an album. You're trying to create music that lasts forever, and you're trying to create amazing music that hits certain demographics and ultimately the whole world can listen to. And you're trying to package it in a way that ultimately tells a story, from what I understand about the most successful albums. There's a theme, there's a narrative, there's cohesion behind the different chapters and the different songs. Listening to it means that when you start at song 1 and go to song 12, you don't have to skip songs in between because that would be like skipping a chapter in a book. That doesn't really make any sense. Same thing for an album. Now, people obviously play whatever songs they want because they consume music in their own individualistic way, but it's sort of the intent of it is like you listen to it in a sequential order and it feels a certain way. And you can always go back to that album because there's a level of emotion and feelings associated with it, even more so than emotions associated with just one song off the album. Like, to me, an artist is usually trying to create a body of work, which is the whole point of releasing an album. Otherwise, you would just release like a compilation playlist, right? Of just like, oh, here's a bunch of songs I put it out there. Now, some artists do that, and it's honestly some trash, and they don't get the recognition that other artists get because other artists put in more work to put out albums. But most people market and produce albums because it's a body of work and it's creative and it's cohesive and it stands the test of time. I don't think speakers do that. Who am I talking about when I say speakers? I think there's a lot of categories. I think there's motivational speakers. I think there's thought leaders. I think there's consultants. I think there's coaches. I think there's poets. I think there's comedians. I think there's sports broadcasters. I think there are people who have ideas worth spreading that don't want to go through the institution of TED to be able to spread their ideas. I think, in fact, there are millions of more speakers, we'll call them that, right? Spoken word content communicators that have ideas to express in that medium than there are musicians. And why do I believe that? It's not because I've done any statistical analysis on this. I literally think that there's just more people that can't sing, and there's a lot of people that can talk. That's the extent of my analysis. So if a lot of people can talk and not a lot of people can sing, I think there's the far majority of a lot of those people that can't sing have the ability to be creative, even if they're not super ultra Michael Jackson level creative, which means they can produce albums or bodies of work through a medium that does not have to be the written word and that does not have to be the singing word, if you will, or the musical word. I don't think there's a lane for those creators to communicate in a way that's different than what's currently being presented. What are we currently getting in the audio content space? We're getting either music or podcast. I think there's a box that is trapping people into, which is like either I'm a podcaster or I'm a musician. Now, 99% of the world is not a musician, right? So they look to podcasting. What is podcasting? Podcasting is just speaking and talking, usually not really like a monologue type of thing. I mean, some people do that, but really creating a dialogue with someone, cultivating some type of a discussion that is meaningful enough to offer value to people who are listening to it. I think that we have boxed people into thinking that they have to be podcasters to be spoken word content creators. I think the majority of the world, the majority of the content you see on Instagram and stuff like that, it's people talking, right, at the end of the day. And I don't think that has to be boxed into the framework of the podcast. I think that it's totally fine to do that. I'm not against it or anything. I think that medium of podcasting is so accessible. It's so normalized. Everyone gets it. Everyone understands, like, okay, you're on this podcast. It's almost like the new blog. So instead of reading the article, you just listen to the person talking about what they were going to write in the article. It's more efficient in consuming content, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But I think there's an extra layer of creativity that the spoken word community can get to. And when I mean spoken word community, I don't mean like spoken word poets and stuff like that. I mean literally everyone that communicates via spoken word audio. That can, I think there's a level they can get to if there was a normalization of a brand of content that was able to be not only listened to and shared, but to be branded in a particular way. And that to me is the speaking album. In its simplest sort of idea, I think a speaking album is your version of Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's your version as a spoken word content creator of creating a cohesive body of work that hopefully stands the test of time, that is track 1 to track 10 songs, talks. They're your talks, let's say from 5 to 8 minutes each, that are different ideas expressed one after the other, ultimately creating a body of work that you can then deliver to the world.